Okay, so welcome to 10 Minutes of Torah. We had a class yesterday where we talked about the idea of Teshuvah, really. That was the concept that we were really talking about, even though we never mentioned the word Teshuvah once. Essentially, that's what it was about. The pasuk that we analyzed yesterday was in Parshas Bo, when Moshe and Aaron yet again are negotiating with Paro to let the Jewish people go, and they're prepping him for the Makkah, the new plague that's going to come of Arba, of locust. And of course, he's stubborn, and so it seems from the Torah text, it seems as if they storm out, disillusioned, frustrated. And the words that we use is vayifen, vayetze, that they turned and then they went out. And
my wife updated me on that.
Exactly. So we had a full discussion about how the process of extracting oneself from Egypt it's a two-step dance of vayifen, of turning, first of all, on an Egypt level. There had to be a moment in the process of the Exodus where the Jewish people, led by Moses and Aaron, but ultimately collectively, pivoted away from Egypt. And they pivoted away from Egypt, the pivoting away from Egypt physically and pointing themselves towards Israel had to be preceded by a mental shift away from Egypt, a psychological, more soulful turning away. That was subsequently followed by the actual physical departure. And so the two steps of first Vayifen and then Vayetze that happened in Egypt, to a certain degree, is a paradigm for the broader notion of Teshuvah. And we have this same concept that really defines Teshuvah. Teshuvah is, in essence, also a Vayifen Vayetze dance, a two-step, a two-pronged process that you cannot have one without the other. They're inseparable. And so the notion of Teshuvah is very much defined by sur meira, pull away from evil, vaseh tov. Those kinds of descriptions. You can't have vaseh tov without really doing the sur meira work. Obviously, in Jewish life, this doesn't give us, it's not encouraging us to not do the Aseh Tov till we master the Sur Meirah. Obviously, we get there in stages. But spiritually, emotionally, we have to do the work that precedes the moving forward. So we can't change in a vacuum. And it's interesting that Purim, it says that Purim is one of the most important Jewish holidays for many reasons, but one lesser known reason, it says it in the Megillah, that on Purim, Kimu Masha Kiblu Kfar. The Jewish people What does that mean, kimu v'kiblu? They accepted what they received. How does that work? What is the notion of, first of all, what is it referring to? So it's referring to the giving of the Torah at Sinai. It says that only all those years later, during the story of Purim, did the Jewish people finally process what they had accepted. And here we have this amazing concept. That's a very, if you think about it, it's a very progressive psychological insight that existed in the scriptures way before Freud ever came on the scene, and psychology and the whole notion of the inner workings of the brain. The Megillah, one of the teachings of the Megillah is that you can hear something and it doesn't truly become integrated into your being, and it's separate from you. And you're hearing it, but you're not accepting it. And you haven't, therefore, fully received it in the true sense of the word. And that's why the image of the midrashic language that surrounds the giving of the Torah is that kafa aleim har kegigis, that Hashem asked the Jewish people, do you want to receive the Torah? And he was holding the mountain over their heads. And they look up and they're saying like, yeah, I guess, I'd rather not be crushed. So, but what does that mean symbolically? It means that to a certain degree they were mentally, they were coerced into this decision. And they didn't do it willingly and consciously. Coerced in the sense that they weren't free enough to actually act in that way, act in a way that would streamline the process and get them to really accepting as a matter on an inner level as opposed to an external just receiving. They weren't there yet, but it had to happen. The program has to start. And so it has to start somewhere. And
so
Purim...
does that link with this Na-7 Ishma kind of thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, we always talk about Na-7 Ishma as a big compliment to the Jewish people. And it was a big compliment to the Jewish people. But what does it really mean? What it means is that they did half a Teshuvah. That they did the Asay Tov really before the Sur Meirah. They did the Vayetze, but they hadn't perfected the Vayifen. And only on Purim did we finally get it. And we fully received Torah. So Purim, to a certain degree, is like a second Shavuot. In many ways, it's the real Shavuot. It's not when we enlisted in the army, it's when we became a real soldier. Becoming a real soldier, more often than not, is somewhere, some shift happens on some distant foreign land, on a lonely battlefield in a trench. Suddenly a man crosses over from the threshold of a civilian and becomes a soldier. Something shifts inside of them psychologically, and they transition into something different. And that's really what's happening over here. And
so it's saying the Torah, I think of it as sort of a formula for human liberty, for human freedom. So what you're saying is that at the Sinai, they still had the slave mentality. They were not able to accept freedom. So in essence, they were, in a certain sense, coerced into you're going to accept these teachings of freedom.
correct. Now, I think that all of these things exist on a kind of a microscopic level daily. we all go through the normal course of a day, and we struggle through our day trying to arrive at a moment of truth, at a moment where the way we are in the world is true, is honest, and we have rare moments in our lives when our inner truth and our behavior, they just all line up momentarily, and we're really honest and we're really holy at that moment, because it's not that we're thinking the right thing and feeling the right thing. We're also thinking the right thing, we're feeling the right thing, and we're doing the right thing.
It's a self-actualization, basically.
It's a total self-actualization, and we're usually split up into many different ways of being. We're either thinking about doing the right thing, but we don't do the right thing, or we're doing the right thing, but doing it like robots. And in many ways, we're not free. When we get it and we act on it, then we transition on a given day from slavery to freedom. We transition from Shavuot to Pesach. We transition from hearing and receiving to actually accepting. And the word kimu is a very powerful word. Kimu means acceptance. We can't possibly hear, we can't possibly listen to the things that we hear until we've psychologically fully embraced them and accepted them. Kimu, the notion of acceptance, is a very powerful step spiritually for people on every level in life. You could know what's right, you could understand it intellectually and emotionally, and you could actually do what's right, but you're still acting like your being is acting like separate departments. When you accept, that means it all comes together in a really glorious, holy moment.
To me, kimu means l'kayem, to perform. Kiblu is to accept, so they performed and they accepted. Kimu, they actually performed.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Kimu mashi kiblu kvar. It all came together for them.
But l'kayem can mean also to have received, but it can also mean to accept.
Correct.
They psychologically accepted, and they also performed.
Correct. So just circling back to finish off with what we started with, Vayif and Vayetze. So true Teshuvah is all about fully turning away from the things that prevent us from going to a place and getting to a place of full acceptance. So in order to get to our destination and leave in order to leave one land, and that's a land that we're familiar with, that we're comfortable with, but it's not really the land that we're meant to be in. It's a foreign land. In order to get to the land that is distant and strange and uncomfortable, but it's our land, it's our promised land, it's the land that we really need to get to, we need to have proper leavings. And only after the turning away from our comfort zone can we leave fully. And once we leave fully, we're in a position to enter fully into a new place.
So when you turn, you have the realization that this is not the place you need to be at.
Correct. And so that's a process. And oftentimes we wrestle with that, and we struggle with where we are, and we try and convince ourselves that we're okay, and we have to move forward, we have to progress. And in doing so, we're more able to fully get what it is that we're trying to do. So Yom Tov. Thank you. Shakar. Yom Tov. We'll pick it up next week.